Hello everybody and welcome to another Let's Play video with me, and I'm heading back into Ark Survival Evolved, and welcome to Ragnarok. Basically Ark has been released now, or has had its official release. It's no longer technically in early access, and as always I appear to have spawned in an area with lots of hostile creatures, so let's run away as I'm trying to explain what is going on in this video and what I'm doing. God, every time I play this game I've never got a break. I always start where it's bad. So yes, where was I? Ark is no longer early access. It's had its official release now on all platforms. There are still obviously updates coming and some issues to resolve with the game following its transition from early access to full release, but I'm not going to go into those details, and those dilos are still a little bit too close, so I'm going to make my way out of this area. Find somewhere a little bit safer. So yes, I decided to come back to the game. It's been a few months and weeks since I last played, and since I last did my sort of server tutorial videos on how to set up and run your own dedicated servers from a PC, your own custom servers. So I thought I'd come back today, and what I've done, I've started a brand new server. This is the Ragnarok Map, which was formerly a mod in the game during early access, but the game developers have actually recruited the person and people behind the mod and have now made it an official game map. It's still a work in progress. Some parts of the map are still under construction, so there are some invisible walls that prevent you from venturing into certain areas which are still being developed, but all in all it's a pretty decent map. So I'm led to believe, from all the stuff I've been reading about it on the forums and stuff, it combines elements of both the traditional island map and centre maps with some of the content found on Scorched Earth. So it kind of merges those three maps together to create this all-in-one world where you've got basically access to everything, all the engrams, so you can create Scorched Earth items on this map and, you know, standard items. So I figured I would start a server on this brand new map, as we are in a brand new version of the game, the release version, and I would see what has changed in the months since I actually stopped playing the game, because as the game moved from early access towards release, the update cycle for the game was really ridiculous. You would get several very large updates being released every single day by the developers, and trying to stay on top of that as a, you know, if you're just playing the game in single player or whatever, or you're playing on official servers, that's no problem, that's no headache. You know, you just load up the game, click join, and of course we get into the world. But when you're actually running your own servers and maintaining your own servers, it was such a headache trying to keep your own servers up to date. Your client, and you'd end up with the game would be a different version to your servers, or the servers would be a different version to the game because of the way the updates released, and it just began to be too much of a headache. So I actually kind of stepped back from Ark, and I moved away from the game while it was gearing up for its full release. And now hopefully it's released and everything's going to sort of settle down again. The updates are going to stop being so frequent that I will be able to get back into the game and start playing it again, which is, like I say, why I've come to this map and have started a brand new server on it. So I'm just doing my usual, try and survive the early stages of the game. Obviously I spawned in quite hostile, surrounded by dilos. I've moved to an area that's a little bit safer. I've tamed my first dinosaur, which traditionally is always going to be a dodo. You know, they're the easiest thing to tame to start off with. You don't need any special weapons or equipment, just your fists, and you just punch them in the face till they're unconscious. You know, jack them up on a couple of berries, and hey ho, you've got yourself a little pet, and you can stash a few items on him as a bit of a mobile storage centre, which is what I'm using him for at the moment. And then we can, obviously when I start to build my base and start to actually get proper storage containers, I can shift some, you know, start to make more plans. But whilst I'm in the beginning phase of the game and I'm moving about, gathering resources, a dodo is a great little pet to have because, like I say, he can follow you around and you can keep slinging stuff onto him to keep your inventory down and stop yourself being over encumbered. And I'm just going to craft up my pick and my hatchets and stuff like that. I'll get my pick, and then I can start gathering flint to get my hatchets and spears going. I'm not a big fan, I must admit, I'm not a big fan of the new UI. That was one of the first things I've noticed about the game, coming back to it, is the fact that they've changed the UI. And I'm not a big fan of this new UI. I've much preferred the old one. It was a little bit easier to see. I appreciate they've added this ability to now have the engrams contained within folders to keep that crafting screen a little bit tidier, because obviously as you go through the game and you unlock loads of different engrams, that screen would get so cluttered and it would make trying to find the items you want to craft a lot more difficult. But I'm not a big fan of this UI change. Some of the functionality of the UI's changed as well, and I'll get into that later on as I'm going through the game. Certain elements that have been changed and I don't think have been changed for the better. One of them is the wheel. When you're trying to interact with your, you know, your dinosaurs, your pets, your tames, I don't like how they've changed the wheel on the dinosaur so that options are within sub-menus within sub-menus. I much preferred when I pressed and held E whilst targeting a tame, you got all the different options on the one wheel on the top layer. Now having to go into different menus to try and get to different functions of your pets is a lot more difficult and a lot harder to do on the fly in, you know, a crucial situation. You know, if you're being attacked by dinosaurs and, you know, you've got your tame set to passive and you want it to kind of help you out, you've got to go into behaviour, you've then got to go into stance, and then you've got to select what mode it's in. So it's like 3 extra steps now to get your tames to come to your rescue. I find that, you know, I can't see that as being a good change forward. The Engram Screen itself, this has changed, and I don't mind this. This looks better because it's a lot more organised now. You can actually clearly see at what level you unlock different things now and see the progression. So that's some elements of it. Yes, I can see are better and are an improvement. Other elements I'm not fully sold and convinced on yet. Another issue that I have with the UI and that screen is when you've leveled up and or you go to your Engram screen and you unlock your engrams, one of the things I've noticed is you can't press the buttons for crafting or inventory to move back. You're kind of locked into that Engram screen and you've actually got to go to the cross in the corner to close and exit out of the Engram screen. I'm so used to just pressing buttons on my little Nostromo. Like, I've got my inventory, my crafting menu bound to 2 keys. I've also got the like container pet inventory button bound to another button, and just being able to, I can cycle between all 3 of those by pressing the buttons. Unless I end up on that Engram screen, then I'm stuck, and then I have to go to the mouse to go and close out of it. But here we are, and like I say, we're in the early part of the game, so at the minute I'm just going around gathering my basic resources and stuff. I'm not playing with any accelerated rates or anything like that. There's a little bit of additional harvesting, but nothing massive. Taming speed I've bumped up a little bit, but apart from that, all the rates are pretty much vanilla on this. I've just done a few Engram overrides and stuff in my configuration file, because obviously I'm using the Structures Plus mod, because, you know, you do not play any Ark game without Structures Plus. It's an essential mod, And like I say, they are working. I know they are it is part of the now sponsored mod program that the Ark developers brought out earlier on in the year. And from what I've heard everywhere, Structures Plus is going to be incorporated into the base game of Ark eventually, and it will be available on PC and then consoles as well, because it's going to become part of the actual game. There will be some elements of Structures Plus that will probably disappear and won't be incorporated, and it's just a case now of the game developers and the mod author coming to some agreement on what is going to make it into the full version of the game and what isn't. But yeah, I like Structures Plus, but one of the things I've done is override the engrams in my server configuration so that I can unlock the Structures Plus items without having to lock the base game. So like, for example, if I want a Structures Plus Thatch Foundation, I can learn that engram without having to learn the standard, the ordinary Thatch Foundation, because it's such a pain in the backside having to learn that, and then you end up with double the number of engrams. So again, when you get to your crafting menus, you end up with so much stuff to filter through to try and craft the items you want. Now obviously, to offset that and make it so it's not cheaty, what I've done is copy across the engram levels and engram points from the standard items to the Structures Plus ones. So when I unlock a Structures Plus, like thatch walls, it costs me the same as it would to unlock the engram for the normal thatch walls. Traditionally, how the mod works is you pay for the the standard engram, and then the Structures Plus engrams are zero cost. You just need to unlock the standard item first. Well, I've I've changed that and edited that so I don't have to learn the standard engrams. And what I may do actually is go through my server configuration and hide the engrams for the standard items. So when you go into the engram screen like I am now, you won't see any of the standard like thatch ceiling, thatch walls, storage boxes. You'll only see the S plus engrams. It'll make it a lot less cluttered and a lot easier to navigate through and learn. So yeah, I might do that before I fire up the server for my next playthrough, my next play session. I might do that. Obviously, that takes a lot more time to go through and remove all the, standard engrams. And there's obviously a couple of other things I need to look at tweaking as well as I go forward, because obviously they've added loads more new dinosaurs and creatures in the last few months to the game. And obviously, because this map combines the standard game with Scorched Earth content, there's loads of dinosaurs that spawn on this map, and I probably need to go through and adjust the spawn weights and what dinosaurs spawn and where they spawn. Otherwise things might get a bit chaotic and cluttered. So yeah, everybody starts out Ark the same way, and anybody who's obviously an experienced Ark player will have seen all this and been through this no end of times. You started on your island and you started with nothing, and now you're trying to get yourself established. So a little base to start with. I'm going for a little thatch base, obviously, give myself somewhere to shelter when I need to, somewhere to keep to sort of operate from, and a base of operations to plan my ventures from in this early stage to get myself established. Obviously, a thatch building doesn't cost you a lot to build, and it serves its purpose. And like you say, this is just a temporary thing. This is just where I've been thrown into the world. I've escaped from my initial hostile beach landing. I can get myself sort of set up, get myself through the early levels, get myself a good base, and then I can start to go out and explore a bit more in the local area and have a look where I'm actually going to plant down my serious roots, if you like, my actual, my firm base. I quite like having little bases, just little like shelters here and there with a bedding and everything, just for ease of access for getting about. And, you know, having somewhere to spawn, respawn in case you do die. With, you know, some containers with, you know, essential items in, like, you know, a pick, a hatchet, a spear, whatever. So if you do die and you respawn, at least you're not starting with nothing. You can, you know, you've got a few items to start with. Obviously replenish them. You know, when you take them out of the container, before you leave the area and go running off to find your body wherever it was, just make sure you've replenished the items. You know, be sensible, be smart, people. I like as well now that you can actually pick up wood from the debris on the ground. That was never a part of the early access version of the game that obviously I last played. Those items were just decorations on the ground. Now they actually have a purpose. You can pick them up. So again, in the early going, you don't even need to craft tools. I think flint is the only thing you can't get without tools. You can now pick up wood, thatch, stone, without actually having to harvest, you know, and use tools. So you can actually get a good going early on without having to use the basic items. Because obviously it used to be a case like, you know, a lot of people joke it was like Minecraft. The first thing everyone had to do when they got in the game was run up and start punching trees, try and get wood and thatch so you could start crafting. You don't have to do that anymore, because like you say, you can find wood just lying on the ground, which is a little bit better. And I'm going to pick up my dodo and I'm going to move him, because he can't climb up the foundation, so I'm just going to chuck him in the corner. And then I'm going to tell him, look, behaviour, disable following, behaviour, stance. See, look, too many. It takes far too long to go through that menu. I much preferred it when all the options were just on the one wheel when you went into the menu. And again, it's alright at this point in time whilst I'm in my base, just, you know, mucking about and getting started. But when I'm out exploring the wilds and I'm getting attacked by creatures, being able to, you know, command your pets is quite critical. And I think that menu is going to be really, really frustrating to use in the heat of battle. And actually, this area, I must admit, as I'm going through, I'm obviously not commentating too much on what's occurring on the screen, but this area where I've kind of started out is actually quite cool. It's got, you know, we've got fairly decent resources. We've got plenty of wood and thatch available. We've got plenty of access to stone and flint. We've got fibre and berries relatively handy. We've got easy access to water. And I do believe there's even fish. So we're not going to be, you know, short of food in the early going of the game. So that's actually starting bases go and starting areas go. I think I've actually picked a pretty good one here. I'm going to take the storage plus box. I'm going to craft up one of them. Got 4 points available. Not really anything else I can buy at this point. A sleeping bag would be quite crucial to have. A hide sleeping bag, because obviously I don't have a respawn point at the moment in case I did die. I want to be able to respawn at my base. At the moment I would respawn in a random location. So being able to put down a hide sleeping bag gives me an actual point that I can return to in the event of my death. Obviously it's single use. You know, if you die, respawn at your hide sleeping bag, that hide sleeping bag is then lost. So you'd have to craft another one before you could respawn. Obviously when you progress to a simple bed and actually, you know, build an actual proper bed, then that becomes a permanent thing. That doesn't disappear after you use it, but it does go on a cooldown, a timer. It does have a cooldown, so if you died again quite quickly, after respawning, you wouldn't be able to respawn at that bed. So then you are kind of forced to make multiple beds and put in a base to give you the option, should the worst happen, that you can, you know, get respawned. Now, one of the things I normally like to do, and again, this is just my personal taste just lately, I like to have lots of different ways into and out of a building. So in the event that, you know, something horrible does start to chase me and I want to run away from it and I don't fancy fighting, being able to get into my shelter quite safely is, you know, very important. So I do like having lots of doorways. And the great thing about Structures Plus is the fact that you can set the doors to be automatic open and close. So again, if you are in a pickle and you are in a rush and you go running towards them, you don't have to faff about trying to press the action key to open the door. You can just run straight into it, it'll automatically open, you can go flying through it and it'll close behind you to keep the nasties out. So yes, I'm a big fan of that. Like I say, because of where I've built this thatch base, I've put basically three doorways on the front, so I can run into any of the walls on the front of the building and I can enter. What I'll probably do later is probably put some doors on the side as well. And then I can basically get into my base from anywhere. I've leveled up again. So buy more engrams. I've got 13 points available now. What are we going to go for? What are we going to go for? A slingshot. A mortar and pestle would be good. There we go. Because then I can start trying to craft narcotics and things. And spark powder and all that sort of stuff. And gunpowder, which, again, I don't know in the release version of the game, but certainly in early access, that was a great way of getting XP early in the game. Making spark powder, making narcotics, making gunpowder, even crafting stimulants, even though I never actually used them in the game, but again, they were an easy item to craft and got you a lot of XP. Because what you'd do is, first you'd craft your spark powder, and then you'd chuck a load of stimberries into the pestle, and then the stimberries and the spark powder you would then craft into stimulants. So you'd get like double XP, the double XP whammy. Same with, again, when you crafted spark powder, if you chuck charcoal in the mortar and pestle, you could then turn it into gunpowder, which comes in very useful later on in the game when you're making weapons, like, and you want to make ammo for those weapons, and you want to make bullets and tranquilizer darts and stuff like that. So again, mortar and pestle is a very good way of getting XP. So anything you can craft in that, like say spark powder, gunpowder, cementing paste, narcotics, stimulants, all that sort of stuff is very useful to have. Learning those engrams early in the game and then having an absolute blitz. And again, one of the things I actually like to do was save up loads of materials, store them in the mortar and pestle, and then run round and find those explorer notes that give you the boost to your XP. They increase, you know, your XP rates, double, and then, you know, I'd probably run around and find 2 or 3 explorer notes or caches to get get a real good boost to my XP. And then I'd go back to my mortar and pestle and just go on a crafting spree, craft everything up in the mortar and pestle that I'd stockpiled, and I'd gain masses of levels very quickly, giving me access to newer engrams and newer tech a hell of a lot quicker. A lot of people approach the early game in different ways. My way of doing it has always been to basically stay in a small area and just focus on leveling up your character and making you as, you know, as strong and as tough as you can be. And then I go out into the wilds once I feel I'm better prepared and better able to resist what I find and encounter out there. And then I start looking at taming, you know, the wild creatures, and building up my pets, and, you know, getting my tames, and establishing my core tames, getting my, you know, your functional dinosaurs first, the ones that are going to actually be very helpful and productive for me in terms of, you know, what they can harvest and stuff like that. So obviously getting a carnivore so I can harvest lots of hide, raw meat, prime meat, chitin, keratin, all that sort of stuff. And then obviously getting a, you know, a herbivore type dinosaur that can harvest berries in vast quantities. So again, I can do get plenty of narco berries to do lots of narcotics and stuff, as well as getting plenty of other berries for later on doing my dyes and custom recipes. Making sure I get a dinosaur that can harvest metal, stone and flint in vast quantities. So an Ankylo or a Doedicurus, something like that, tends to be pretty useful. Another good dinosaur I like to get maybe a Therizinosaurus, who can pretty much gather anything, you know, wood, thatch, berries, fibre, hide, meat. You know, even though it's a herbivore, bird-like creature, it seems to be an all-round expert. But obviously they're quite a vicious, temperamental creature. Even though, like I say, they are a herbivore, they are quite aggressive. So taming one of them, you have to be pretty highish level, and like I say, getting one of them on your side's good going. Same with something like a mammoth. If you can tame a mammoth, they're pretty good at harvesting wood and thatch, and obviously they can carry an absolute ton of stuff. So they can carry loads of materials. Although for a lot of people, by the time you get to the stage where you're taming a mammoth and can craft a saddle to ride a mammoth, you're perhaps not reliant. You don't need wood and thatch, maybe, in such quantities that they can obtain. I mean, pretty much wood becomes useful for powering your like your refining forge, your forges, your grills, your campfires. Thatch, obviously, I like to sling in my cooking pot, so then I'm not, you know, I can make all my dyes and custom recipes without contaminating them with charcoal, which is obviously a byproduct when you start burning the wood, if you're burning wood in there. But yeah, I mean, obviously late game you're going to be wanting metal, obsidian, crystal, polymer, organic polymer, oil, things like that. They're the crucial resources. But in the early going, I quite like my wood, thatch, stone and flint. That covers my bases. And again, generally, I find that when I play the game, I generally stick to building my bases out of wood and at a push stone, because A, the materials are so easy to come by, and you can have them in abundance that, again, should the worst happen and, you know, a building gets destroyed or damaged, it's easy to rebuild it or repair it, because, you know, there's not a great cost involved. I also quite like how the wood and stone sort of structures look. I know everyone will say, oh, you know, you need to build metal. You need to be building your bases out of metal to stop yourself from being raided by other players and other tribes if you're on a PvP server. But I don't know, I just don't like the look of metal buildings. They look a bit naff. I think, like I say, the wood and stone allows you to give some character to your buildings. And again, I'm all about base building. I know my servers are set up for to be PvP servers, but I'm definitely a PvE player. I'm only interested in building a base and surviving. I tend to role play my character. I treat it as a survival game, and you know, what would my character do if it was a real situation? He'd need to get a base set up, somewhere he can live. He'd need to get self-sufficient, so he'd need ready access to food and water, so setting up crop systems, so he's always got access to berries, vegetables, you know, setting up a system so he's always got access to meat, so he can get cooked meats, cooked fish, that sort of thing. So again, having pets that can harvest those elements, you know, being able to defend himself, so making sure he's got the means to defend himself, whether that be weapons, base defences, or, you know, by taming pets that, you know, can be very, very useful. You know, plenty of big carnivores to put around your base to ward off any would-be invaders. But yeah, that's what I do. And then, once I've got that system set up, I just play the game as like a life simulator, basically. I get in a routine where I just go do my rounds. You know, my character wakes up in the morning, he goes out, does all his tasks, he checks all his crop plots, gets all his materials, goes and puts them into storage, takes his carnivores out to stock up on a fresh supply of meat, then take out any of the other dinosaurs to obtain any other resources that I need, then come back to the base and do the crafting that I need to do. And usually by that point, by the time I'm done, it's getting dark, and then I don't go out in the adventuring in the island in the dark. So then it's night time for me. I stay in my base and just wait till the morning, and then I rinse and repeat. And that's how I play the game. Go off and explore the map, travel around, get into fights with wild animals and dinosaurs, and like I say, go and get my materials needed to just be self-sufficient and survive each day, and just basically see how long I can go then without encountering death. I know most people play the game to do the artifact hunt, to then go and fight the game's bosses at the obelisks. I've only ever done that once on console, just to get my platinum achievement on PS4 for Ark. I've not really done it on PC, to be honest. I've not gone round getting, you know, hunting for the artifacts to fight the bosses, because it's not, that sort of part of the game just doesn't appeal to me. Maybe it'll change again, because again I tend to be because I'm predominantly a solo player. Fighting the bosses isn't, you know, very appealing because they're really tough, and you know, it's the if you like, the, how should I put it, the preparation that has to go into fighting bosses as a solo player, trying to get the massive number of dinosaurs you need as backup and support to an obelisk to upload, to then into the boss arena, to then do the fight, and then obviously the problem that comes with fighting the boss, who can rip through and destroy your dinosaurs, and then you've got the problem of, okay, now I need to go out and replace the ones that have died. And again, if you invested a lot of time leveling up dinosaurs, you don't really want to lose them. I grow attached to my dinosaurs when I've spent time with them, leveling them up, and if I've got into the habit of, you know, mating them and breeding with them, then I especially don't want to lose them. You know, if you spent a lot of time raising a dinosaur from an egg all the way up, the last thing you want is for it to get obliterated by one of the bosses in the game, and all that time be lost. So I think the boss fights are a good thing if you are playing with lots of players, if you've got lots of friends who play the game, or you're part of a tribe with a lot of active players, and you know that's the thing you're into. But again, for me, being a predominantly solo player, because you know I'm pretty much antisocial in real life, then yeah, the boss fights aren't something that appeals and is part of my to-do list. For me, it's all about building up a good base and having a good structure, you know, around me to ensure my character could survive and be quite happy living on whatever map I'm on for his natural life. However long that is. I don't know how long characters actually live for. They don't go through an aging cycle. They live indefinitely. Unless, of course, they get killed and eaten by something. With more teeth. And normally more legs than you have. Yeah, I'm just working my, like I say, just working my way through this little starting area where I've started off. Gathering all my bits and pieces and slowly crafting away. Like I say, there is plenty of fish. I don't think there's any... And what I like... I don't think there's any hostile fish in this little bit of pool of water. I think it's just coal. It's pretty cool. There's no, like, piranha or, you know, saber-toothed salmon or stuff like that, which could kill me. There's no megalodons or mantas or anything like that, which you would find normally in the oceans, because I'm assuming this is like fresh water. Amazingly, there's no like baryonyx or spinos as well, which would normally you'd think like an area like this because there's plenty of food. So again, as far as starting base locations, wherever I have spawned here, this is a good one actually. This has actually turned out better than I thought. So we've actually found ourselves a good little area here. So actually maybe, I'm thinking to myself that maybe I don't have to go and relocate to another area. I could actually put down my serious roots and foundations here, because I've got a lot of what I need just around me. I could always go and there's nothing stopping me from later on building another base a little bit further out in the wilds. You know, little forward operating posts or whatever you call them. And obviously putting in beds to give me fast travel points. That's something I haven't done, and I probably ought to do it actually. This is probably a good a time as any to do it. And that's that system whereby you have different bases at strategic points around the map, normally around resources, and be able to you know, make sure you've got storage containers loaded up with clothing, tools and stuff like that, and just fast travel to those places. Do the work you need to do, take it back to the base, put the stuff into storage, strip off all your stuff, put that into storage, fast travel back to your main base, and then get either you know, a transport dinosaur, you know, maybe something with a, you know, a platform saddle, something like that, and then go to that, travel to that base you've just been to and load up with all the stuff and bring it back. It makes things a little bit safer for you. It cuts down the risk on getting killed and losing all your items. Okay, so I'm just going to sort through my inventory now. get rid of a few items into my containers, and then I'm probably going to bring this episode to an end, because I'm looking at the time and it's getting on for 40 odd minutes. So, good start to my life on Ragnarok. Amazingly, I haven't died yet. I haven't run into that traditional noob experience of being killed, and I've actually got myself pretty established and got off to a pretty good start. So hopefully a good platform foundation to build on. So join me in upcoming episodes to see how I fare and see how I progress with life on Ragnarok in the released version of Ark Survival Evolved. Thank you all for watching. Remember to leave those likes and subscribe, and I will see you all again very soon with future videos.